Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thank you for signing on to our Seeds of Success event. And today we have three wonderful presenters. We have Amy Van Scoik of Frogs and Organics. We have Pam Mack, and we also have Anna Jones-Crabtree. So just a little bit about this particular type of session. This is new for OFRF. This is our Seeds of Success, and we have both a farmer to farmer and farmer to researcher Seeds of Success session. I'm working on trying to slide through this deck, but it wasn't going through. Let me try one more time. There we go. This session came about from just conversations we've had with some of our partners, and we are, the Organic Farming Research Foundation has partnered with the Organic Farmers Association and National Organic Coalition. And we are part of a national group of partners for the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. At the national level, we're working on a variety of support that we can provide for organic growers and those who are interested in transitioning to organic. And this graphic that you see here is actually a list of many organizations across the US in different regions that are contributing to this type of development of technical assistance and support for organic growers. These are going to be facilitators for today's call. We're going to have some breakout sessions. We definitely want the opportunity to get together and have some conversation and not just have OFRF or a presenter speaking at you, but rather sharing a lot of the wonderful depth of experience that is in this space with us today. So on the OFRF team, we have Mary Hathaway, Jose Perez, and Heather Strada. They'll be helping out with our breakout rooms, as well as Steve Ela, Alice Rundy, and Abby Youngblood of the National Organic Coalition. For today's agenda, I'm going to give a quick intro to OFRF and why this particular Seeds of Success series and this topic is so important to us. We'll do a quick What's the Buzz, which is when we're just going to break into small groups, share some insights. We have a couple questions to prompt conversation, and then we'll have presentations from Anna, and then Amy, and then Pam. And then we'll have a facilitated Q&A. So please feel free, if there are any questions that you have along the way, put those in the chat. We do have folks from our team monitoring this chat, and we'll bring those up in the Q&A session. We'll have a breakout group. So then we'll have our breakout room where people can have small talk and just really dig into some of those topics that they're interested. And then we'll come back as a big group and share what some of those conversations look like in those breakout rooms. So about OFRF, if you're not familiar with our organization, I really hope you are. But if you aren't, we've been around since 1990. Our mission is to really foster the improvement and widespread adoption of organic farming systems. We are a nonprofit. And I look at our work from, we use like a three-pronged approach, essentially. We engage in research, education, and advocacy. And so from the research perspective, we do research. So we also support research grants. And then we have our own research that we do as a nonprofit organization. We also have education that we provide in terms of free resources on our website. We have online courses. We have fact sheets, we have guidebooks. We just launched a new farmer-led research guide that just was published on our website recently. And then advocacy, for many of you, you're aware that this is Farm Bill year, and this is really an opportune moment for our organization to collaborate with our partners and make as big an impact as we can. I want to just mention two new exciting programs that we have, and this is not digging into the topic for today, but we do have our Farmer-Led Trials program, and we have our Seeds of Success, which is the first of the one that we are having today. So if you haven't heard of our Farmer-Led Trials program, please go to our website. The link is there. Heather or Jose, if you could please post the link within the chat. And then you can also visit our events page for other events like this one that's going on. So why is it that this particular topic is so important? This came about from a report that we published in 2022, and this is our National Organic Research Agenda. We sent out a survey to farmers across the nation, certified organic farmers, and also we did some outreach to transitioning to organic farmers. And we got over 1,000 responses. And we also did 16 focus groups. And the focus of this survey was to ask growers, what are your challenges? What are your needs? How can we best support you as an organization and share your needs more widely with the research community? There are 5 main chapters within here, and it is broken down by different farm characteristics, demographics. what are those production challenges that growers have, as well as those non-production challenges, and what are the needs, concerns that growers raised. And the focus of this one is really more on that non-production challenge perspective. So one of the biggest non-production challenges that was cited in this report by 42% of the respondents was finding and developing markets for organic products. Obviously, accessing labor is one of those big challenges. That's not one of the ones that we're able to touch on at this time, especially recognizing that this survey was done at the height of the pandemic. And so there were a lot of shutdowns that were really impacting that. But it is an important topic, and one that we have been thinking about ways in which to unpack. But for this topic, finding and developing markets is one that came up. And an example of that from some of the qualitative data that we gathered were comments such as this one here, where they said growing crops can be challenging enough, but the hardest and most important part is making sure they are sold in time. We sell both CSA and wholesale, but invest a lot of time and money into maintaining markets and trying to find new ones at a fair price. On this next slide, I'm going to show you just a couple other comments. Someone said, I can't sell the produce I grow. There's just not enough organic farmers, and I can't fill a train carload by myself. We need to co-op. Someone else also mentioned the importance of aggregated distribution, like cooperatives and food hubs. And we did have someone in the survey say, what tools and technologies can better serve these micro and small farms that are trying to sell online or provide delivery services? Is it feasible, right, economically for these farms? On what trainings exist? And so we decided that we wanted to try to tackle this topic by bringing other experienced farmers who have tapped into a variety of different markets. I'm going to share another little bit of information in our National Organic Research Agenda. This is when we ask growers, where is it that you are marketing your products, and what's the scale? And so in terms of the scale, we asked, are you selling locally, regionally, nationally? And this is for 50% or more of your produce. And on the left side, you'll see 64% of organic growers said they're selling locally, whereas 86% of transitioning to organic growers said that they're selling locally. And so we can see that those who are a little bit more established, they have been able to tap into the regional and national markets a little bit better. And then for those marketing outlets, we also see some changes where, those who are certified organic, they are selling wholesale in addition to direct to consumer and direct to retail, but 45% are selling wholesale, whereas transitioning growers, only 13% are selling wholesale, and 46% of them are direct to consumer, right? Those farmers markets and those CSAs. And there's also a matter of preference, who you want to sell your products to, but it's really good information to have. So our first presenter is Anna Jones-Crabtree of Vilicus Farm. Anna and her husband Doug own and manage Vilicus Farms, which is a first-generation farm up in Montana. There's over 12,500 acres of dryland crop. They do a variety of organic heirlooms, specialty grains, pulses, oilseed. They've actually been featured in a variety of our guidebooks because we know they're doing such amazing crop rotations and taking great care, wonderful stewards of the land there. Over 26% of their land is in non-crop conservation, and they also seed over 3,000 acres of cover crops, and they also have integrated grazing. We're really excited to have Anna's experience here. She's not only certified organic, but they're also certified through the Real Organic Project and moving over to regenerative organic certification as well. With that, Anna, we are going to transition over to your slides. Mary will give you control of the slide deck, and then it'll be on to you. You can share your experience with the group.
Sounds great. Thanks, Selma. Well, and just thanks to OFRF for inviting me to be part of this. I've got a whirlwind tour of our farm. It's kind of gray here today, moving into winter. I think it's going to be maybe 40 something. We're in the process of putting a bunch of equipment away and doing some repairs so we can get ready to hit it hard again next into March and April. So I thought it'd be nice to just share a lot of pictures with you so you have some context. My sister April is also an organic farmer. She's in Southwest Washington. It has, I think, 23 acres and a really awesome CSA and community connection. Whoops, I'm not hitting the slides. Oh, you guys are going? Okay. Anyway.
Mary, can you please give the control over because I think it's still on my end. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, it's okay. I hadn't moved anything yet. Let me see. There we go. It's just slow. All right. So my sister April and I, April's a much smaller scale than Doug and I, but we often talk about many of the same challenges of farming. You know, what's the economics? How do they work? What's happening with climate change? How do you deal with weather and labor, and then this whole market thing? And so one of the things I'll try and remember to talk about a little bit later is April and I are concocting a plan of how our farm can connect to her CSA members by selling some more direct sales of bags of grain and purchasing grain grinders, so that April, who does mostly vegetable production, can also include grains in her CSA share packages. So that's something we're excited about exploring as we move from mostly wholesale markets into more direct to consumer markets. Okay, let me just see if I get the controls right here. Okay, so you see where we're located, right up on the Canadian border. We farm right on the Canadian border. A little bit about our place is we're in a place that's considered very rural. There are less than 5 people per square mile in our county. And we're 40 miles to the nearest population, which is less than 10,000 people. So very different place than probably where many of you are farming. We're dry land without a lot of moisture. It's really about where do we do snow catch and manage water. And Doug likes to joke, and that joke, or maybe not, but some of our neighbors talk about farming where it's too dry for cattle, because to have animals, we have to manage water and bring water to them because it's not necessarily here on the land. Just a little bit more about us and our scale. We do an awful lot of cover cropping. We have 5- and 7-year crop rotation. So we typically, last year we seeded 18 crops, and only 10 of those were things that we harvested. We've also integrated grazing into our cropping system with a custom grazing project. And then we're also Be Better certified. So, and we've been transitioning more acres to organic over the time we've been farming, which is super opportune. We have so much opportunity for land. Land access is not a problem that we have here. We're 16 miles west to east and 20 miles north to south. So the house that I'm standing at right now, our headquarters, is in the yellow. Some of our first farms that we started in 2009 are in the green. We have another farm unit that Paul, our gentleman that manages the grazing enterprise, lives down in the yellow farm, or sorry, the orange farm unit. And then purple is the land that's right up there on the Canadian border. So we're pretty excited about having some more contiguous acreage. So we really look at these as like 4 different farm organisms. They're kind of like 4 different kids. They all have their own personalities, even though the whole overall ecosystem is similar. The places are all really unique. This is what we look like from the sky. We're in a wheat and a not wheat crop rotation. And because it's so dry, many people around us only actually harvest a crop once every other year. So the year that they're not growing anything, it's chemical fallow, no-till is what surrounds us. So we look really different from the sky. Here it is a little closer up, looking closer on our fields. We have conservation strips between each of our crop strips, and those are the strips we've been seeding to native pollinator habitat. And then once you get down on the ground, it looks more like this. So that's lentils on the left, and the conservation strip in the middle, and then on the right, I think, was probably oats from a couple years ago. Oops, wrong button. All right, so let me just take you on a whirlwind tour of some of our grains. So here's spelt, and it's a light feeding grain, so it doesn't take as much from the soil. And this is Doug's whole brain idea around all of the intricacies of the crop rotation. We really think diversity, both in crops, diversity in critters, diversity in people, diversity in markets, is key to our ability to be resilient. This is a heirloom hulless barley. Here I am standing in a rye field. Here's a heavy feeding, more modern red wheat. Here's a previous Jack Russell standing in a lentil field. Some peas. So this is the legume part of the rotation. Flax from many years ago when I was a little younger. Oh, geez, I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened with our slide translation here. Anyway, this is also another part of the rotation where we think about a lot of interseeding. This is a light feeding grain, which is kamut with interseeded with flax. So we also grow lots of other things to keep diversity in the soil. This is, I think, an oat and clover cover crop. Here's some safflower that's not yet blooming, but super stickery. The Jack Russell Terriers don't even want to walk through that field. Buckwheat, which is a later season, warm season crop. Here's some mustard. And here is a chickling vetch field. So this is another one of our favorite cover crops. And one of the things we've been doing with this crop is growing our own seed and then potentially marketing to others because it's such a great cover crop mix for us. And then I can't forget about the cows. So here's a field of buckwheat and phacelia cover crop with integrated grazing. So that was just a little tour of our farm, but here was our very first lentil harvest, probably 2020. So I'm much more spry than I than I am today, 16 seasons later. But we've been able to move from putting everything in totes when we started with 12,000 or 1,280 acres to today where we have 12,000 acres, and we're doing things more in trucks and big storage bins. The nice thing for us about grains, and I talked to my sister April about this, is grains can store for a very long time. So we're lucky that way compared to some of my produce grower friends who I know have much more of a challenge there. Just another picture of some of our fields and harvest, the Montana sky. So you get a sense of our scope and scale. The piece that we've been really working on since we started is many farms like ours grow things, put them in the bin, and then go have a conversation about where to sell them. We have decided that we really need to understand where all of the things that are coming off of our acres are going. Where's the home of that? How do we know what the pricing structure is? And then how do we build a relationship with those buyers so that we're actually sharing risk and reward? It's much more than just saying what's the price and how many bushels. So our question is how do we actually share risk more equitably? So in our contracts, we've been trying things like buy by the acre. So you get whatever the production is in any given year. And here's the price that's set. We also are setting floors and ceilings. We know our cost of production annually is at least $100 an acre. And so we need that to pay for the people, cover the equipment and repairs, buy the fuel. And if we don't have a crop to sell, thanks to climate change, we really still need to have some base income so we can continue to do the soil building over the long run. We've had some buyers furnish seed for us. So we've agreed to take a little lower price if they'll pay for the seed up front and provide it. That allows us not to have to borrow so much on a line of credit. We've also talked about timing on delivery and payment. In our world, often you do your harvest come July, August, September, October, and sometimes the buyers won't take that until maybe February. One of the benefits of grain is that you can store things. But when that happens, that causes a cash flow crunch for us. So we've also had buyers pay storage fees or pay for half of the crop up front so that we can do all of our end of the year obligations. And then once it's delivered, they pay for the rest of the balance. So trying to think about where do we share risk and reward with our buyers, because it's not just all about the crop and how much you get for a bushel of say specialty spelt. It's really about what works for them and what works for us as a farmer so that we can keep doing this year to year. We've had a few challenges around quality specs. Part of our issue in this wholesale market is that everybody thinks a grain of wheat should be a grain of wheat, which should be this protein, this falling number. And under climate change, man, we've had some real variability. And so how do we think about that differently? So the other thing that's been really emerging for us is that this work of stewardship happens no matter how little or how much it rains. We are still grazing cows. We're still taking care of pollinator habitat, employing people, training people. And that work is work that is not necessarily recognized by our markets when everything's based on just a bushel dollar amount. Last year, in 2022, we had 9% of our average production due to drought. That was coming off of a year where we had 34% the year before. This year's much better. I think it's 50%. But for farms like ours that are very diverse, we don't fit the normal crop insurance model. And so we always end up with a gap between, at least the last few years, a gap between what our income is based on what we produce and then what we can get in crop insurance. And we're left to make up the bit of that. So how do we think about that differently? We've been exploring ecosystem service markets as well. And that's also been a bit frustrating because while there's a lot of discussion about funding more nature-based solutions, the ecosystem service markets want to pay for additionality. They want to pay for something that's new. And if we've already been early adopters, we don't fit their model. We've also been told that we're so complex that to put us into a regular carbon monitoring modeling program, we just don't fit. And so that's been a source of frustration for us because we need the larger world to recognize that it takes people and critters and patience to really do what we're doing. I mean, you don't build soil on quarterly profit reporting cycles. I think all of you understand that. So we've been pivoting to say, okay, instead of selling things only in semi-trucks, we will continue to do that because that's the type of farm we are, and it's about land stewardship, not necessarily just about growing food. But can we sell a portion of that by building markets that are more direct and relationship based? So one of the things that's really emerging for us here is we did get a value-added producer grant from USDA. We've gotten a Growth Through Ag grant from the Montana Department of Agriculture, and we're selling rye, which is a crop that we hadn't been able to find a more commodity market for, direct to distilleries. And this has been such a fun project. Not just because there's whiskey involved, but just getting to have a conversation with our distilleries. So Glacier Distilling, we just got the last load for this year. It's getting processed today. It's going to be sent to them. That'll be a year for them, a year supply for them. And we've been starting to have conversations about cost plus. Like their costs have been going up. It costs more to have bottles, the glass bottles, and more to keep the lights on. And so same for us. And so we're really excited about continuing to have that more one-on-one transparent conversation about what's it take for each of us to stay in business and how do we work together on that. The other thing we've done is said we need to separate out the work that we're doing in terms of ecosystem services and stewardship service from the annual stream of production. So we've launched 2 years ago now, or coming up in 2 years, I think in June, is our community supported stewardship agriculture. So we're riffing off of the CSA model, right? Which the CSA model is like pay up front, share the risk. So how do we do that for ecosystem services? So for $100, equates to about 1 acre, you get a share in our service of stewardship. You get some deep learning and understanding about what's happening on our farm. And as we are moving towards more direct sales for part of our grain production, and lentils and mustard and all the good other things. We're going to have reduced pricing for our CSSA members. So this is another project that's just starting to emerge for us, is how do we sell soft white wheat, which is pastry flour, and what's the pricing of that for somebody that's a CSSA member. And we have CSSA members from all across the country, which is super exciting because it gives somebody a direct connection to a farm. And we think that's part of what's missing in the world today. This is also part of the program we're going to try and work on with my sister April and probably another couple CSAs in Montana, which is, can we ship bags of berries, grain berries, to a CSA farm, purchase some smaller tabletop grain mills that they could use with their CSA members, kind of like a checkout system, like a library. Instead of checking out a book, you check out a grain mill, and then you get to learn a little bit more about how do you make marvelous things out of grains, fresh grains. Like, everybody should have an opportunity to have a whole wheat biscuit. And vegetables are super important, but when you look at the caloric intake across our population, the majority of our calories are grains. So how do we make more of that direct connection for people to think about it? It really comes down to we rather than I, and thinking about this whole thing as a community and finding the right places that you can talk with your buyers and open some dialogue around where are there opportunities to think a little differently versus just the straight up transaction-based relationships that we all have now. I had to get the obligatory Highlander picture in here. One other thing we think about for our farm and for any farm, there's all these pressures around surrounding one farm, right? Farms are like beating hearts. We need to keep them alive and intact, especially organic farms. Every single one of us is really important. But there's also other things that we provide to our community, both local and larger, I would say on a planetary scale. And what are those things that our farm does or your farm might do? And how do we, not to be too brash about this, but how do you monetize that? Or how do you achieve some value for that? Because it's more than just food production. I guess the other thing I'd say is Don and I feel a real sense of urgency around this because, we don't have time to wait till we figure out all the science on how are we going to measure carbon, who's going to get paid for it. And then isn't it flipping crazy? Like, we can suddenly stand up an entire other industry that's just going to do this for us instead of just putting money directly into farms that are doing the right thing. So that's the other reason for our CSSA program is we need to figure out how the funds don't get stuck in this other middle sector. So work from a place of relationships, not transactions. And then two other things I'll leave you with is, to make a prairie, it takes a clover and a bee. And I would say we're actually on the end of doing a lot of reverie because we're in a place that is not broadly organic. And so you have to sometimes make your own community where you are. And then to end is part of making the community is we have to understand that we have, as humans, direct connection to land. And I think we have lost that in a lot of places. And those of us who are farming, I think, have a responsibility to help bring that relationship back. So with that, I will end. I can stop sharing. And I hope, Mary, I went fast enough and stuck to my time.
That was great.
Thank you so much, Anna, for your wonderful insights. We're going to transition to our next presenter. Again, please add your questions into the chat as they come along into your mind. Our next presenter is Amy Van Scoik of Frog Song Organics. Amy is the co-owner, founder, and operator of a wonderful farm in North Central Florida with her business partner, who is also her husband. She has a formal education in plant science and community development from UF and UC Davis, and she's loved working with OFRF doing some of this work. And I think where on to you, Amy. So Mary is handing over slide control, and you should be able to transition.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me today. I just wanted to check how much time should I?
You've got
Bill?
10 minutes, maybe a little wiggle room there. Yeah.
Okay, so our is a where do I want to start? So yeah, we are a very diversified certified organic farm. So I really just want to build on some of the points that Anna made, really, with the diversification being the key. We started out selling only products that we grew from our own operation, which was about 6 acres back in 2011. And then since then, we have expanded by leasing and then purchasing acreage using a USDA beginning farmer and rancher development loan. And we've expanded up to about 63 acres, and about 40 of that is planted with crops. And so here's a picture of myself in front of a sun hemp cover crop. We do a lot of cover cropping as well. And our main cover crops that we do are, we do sun hemp, we do plant buckwheat, we have done oats, we've done rye. I think we have done some other ones as well, but the sun hemp is really popular in Florida and it works really well. And this is actually a maize that John created, and we used it for an event that we just had, which was called the Roselle Festival. So we had hundreds of people come out to do a U-pick, and they went through the field and did the maize. It was really fun. So yeah, we do a lot of specialty crops using mainly overhead irrigation. We actually started with a lot of drip tape, as gardeners and some smaller farmers do. And then as our acreage grew, it just became really impractical for us to lay it all out. And then also rats chewed a lot of holes in it. The moisture levels that were described in the previous presentation were just blowing my mind. We kind of have the opposite situation in Florida. We get usually plenty of rain. We are in a dry period, very dry period right now, but overall we do have rainfall as well as well water for irrigation. And then we primarily use animal-based fertility. We spread composted cow manure, and then we use a lot of the chicken manure-based fertilizer that's heat treated. We also do pastured pork and laying hens. And I think what makes our operation special in Florida is that we do operate year-round, and we sell to a really wide variety of farmers markets and different outlets. So the diversity for us is both in the cropping systems and having livestock integrated, and also in how and where we sell our crops. John Bitter is my husband. He also did inspection work for about a decade, and used that off-farm income to help us expand our farm. Since the pandemic, he was able to, well, he made the choice to, and also was able to stop traveling for work, and now is able to devote full time to that and to our farm. And we also have a couple of kids that aren't super helpful on the farm yet, but every once in a while they'll help me pack some eggs or feed the animals. I'll see, how do I advance to the next slide? Okay, so here is an aerial view of our farm. So we employ relay cropping, cover cropping, rotational grazing. We do not use any plastic mulch, which is pretty common on a lot of commercial scale organic farms, but it's not something that we want to do at our farm. And I think one of the biggest, most important features of our farm, besides the actual crops and the landscape and stewarding the land, is the team of people that we work with. So our team has expanded rapidly over the years. We work together with a team of anywhere from 30 to 40 plus people working year round. And that includes a seasonal H-2A visa worker team that comes from in our main season from October through June. And we are currently generating over $1.5 million annually of gross revenue off of the 60 acres. And we're also supporting over a dozen other regional producers. So that revenue includes products that we purchased and then sold through basically what's an aggregator or a food hub from a variety of other farmers. And one of the other participants on the call, Ida, I think she has purchased things from us. And then I'm not sure if we have purchased things from her farm, but we have purchased things from some of the other producers in the area. And we've actually started trading back and forth, which is really great, like kind of building the network and supporting each other. And that was really, really important through the pandemic, was that diversity and being able to pivot really quickly and having an online store already set up. So when all of our restaurants dropped out during the shutdown, we were able to very quickly pivot to having people come out directly to the farm, pick up food in an open air environment, and we never shut down. It was the hardest we've ever worked probably in our careers of farming, but we made it happen. Let's see what has worked for us on our products. We have found crops that perform well in our area. So okra, roselle, persimmons, a lot of root crops. And one of our keys to success, I would say, is distinguishing our products from commodity organic, similar to what Anna said about, the terroir, the special unique qualities of your crop versus comparing it to commodity organic. We also have worked really, really hard to develop a word of mouth reputation for premium quality, and also with chefs as they move from restaurant to restaurant, they'll bring you with them as a customer or as a supplier, and then also recommend you to other restaurants. And we also have found success with just a lot of constant communication with our customers. So we do everything from a CSA pickup at the farm. We also sell at 4 farmers markets per week. And we also distribute to institutional buyers, such as the school board of Alachua County. We help supply their school lunch program on a small basis. And then one of the things I think I'm the most proud of is that we really try to be inclusive with who and where we get food out to. We do everything from accepting SNAP and doing the Fresh Access Bucks matching, which is a grant program in Florida that doubles the SNAP dollars for local and organic, not local and organic, but local Florida produce. And so we do everything from accepting SNAP and doing cashing WIC checks to cashing checks from Marriott International and Cisco with our wholesale. So it makes me feel really good to know that the same food that's grown organically at our farm can go to that diverse of consumers. So the other questions that were asked were, what lessons have we learned? I will touch on the cash flow issue also. When we started to expand and started to take on more restaurant customers, the cash flow was really something that was hard to adjust to, because we went from a lot of direct sales, the farmers market, you've got cash in hand at the end of the market and maybe your credit cards in a day or two. And as you grow and you have a bigger accounts receivable, some restaurants might not pay you for a week, 2 weeks, a month, or maybe some are hard to get a hold of and don't pay you for a little while. So learning how to manage and having a plan for that accounts receivable is really important as you grow. I mentioned the diversification, and then human resources, that were on that poll at the beginning. That is definitely the #1 challenge. In Florida, honestly, you can grow crops. There's a lot of pest pressure due to the humidity and the heat, but the people are the #1. The people in the soil, and water are all of our top resources. These are some pictures here of our crews throughout the years. These are some recent pictures. We started as a much smaller crew, and these photos don't even include everybody that works with us at farmers markets, does delivery driving. There's quite a diversity of folks. The strawberry picture here, it shows you the straw mulch that we do, or hay mulch. We actually purchase bales of hay and take those round bales of hay from local producers and spread those to mulch a variety of our crops instead of using the plastic. And so this is building soil when we turn it back in, instead of having to remove the plastic. So the scale of farms, we were also talking about the scale of farms, profitability and trade-offs. We do spend a lot more time managing logistics and repairing and maintaining trucks, tractors, golf carts, all kinds of equipment, you name it. We're spending a lot more time and resources doing that than I ever could have imagined when we started farming. So that's something that it just takes time and a system to do, and just make sure you're training people correctly and having good insurance. We have scaled up some of our equipment, like we have built a root washer, and we turned a washing machine into a salad spinner, which I'm sure some of the produce growers have seen that before. But we keep really detailed records of our production and how much time goes into harvesting, packing, cleaning, planting, all that stuff. So we were able to actually justify the cost of building a custom built root washer, because we could see how much time was going into it, doing hand washing with a hose. And, when we first started, so we could actually justify that, oh, this is going to pay itself off in a certain amount of time. I think the time is coming to a close. So some of the other things we were asked about was what are some of the things we'd like to try for the future of our business. And we are currently working on getting a commercial kitchen on site. We were awarded a grant from the Healthy Food Financing Initiative to help expand our availability of SNAP eligible foods in our community, because we are considered a low resource area, or food desert type area. And so we are working on that. And we also are working on replacing a lot of our trees. We planted over 1,000 trees in the time that we've been farming here since 2011. And the stone fruit trees, like the peaches and plums, nectarines that we were originally very excited about, they just don't perform that well. And so we're replacing them with things that perform better, like pears, citrus, persimmons, and the native elderberry. We are developing more medicinal crops and specialty products. So we do turmeric, we do elderberry, we do moringa, and we've actually been working with some companies on turning those into source identified supplements. And we are also exploring options for forming a cooperative, an employee-owned business, or potentially separating our distribution into another company. And we also want to develop more infrastructure on the farm, like a shop to work on vehicles, and develop more on-farm housing, because being able to house your workers is really a benefit to their employment, especially to help the farming wage be a living wage in your community. If housing is not an expense, then it just really makes it a lot easier for folks to choose a career in agriculture and actually be able to maintain the standard of living that they want. So I think one of the things that really helps our farm stand out, if you want to visit our website, and we can go to the last slide and learn more, we do have a really wide variety of producers that we work with. We call them partner producers. And we have a standard. Our standard currently is that we only purchase and distribute products from farmers that we know and we have a personal connection with. And we actually physically go to the farms and pick up this produce. In many instances, like we actually take a truck to North Carolina twice a month in the summer months to bring in product that we don't have year round. And then other farmers deliver direct to us. And so our ability to support the regional food network and actually help some of the smaller growers offload some of the items that maybe they only grow 1 or 2 things, it doesn't make sense for them to go to a farmer's market and set up with 1 or 2 crops. We bring their products in and sell it as part of our wider offerings. And it really helps us to maintain a good market share at the farmers markets that we do have, and free up those producers' time to focus on the markets that they already do, or maybe some of the growers that we work with who are older folks, they're not going to be loading a truck and setting up a stand at the farmers market, but they still want to grow. And so they bring their products to us and we help them get those products to market. So I think that's been one of the biggest ways that our farm has grown in the last few years, is by expanding our partner producer program. So we're really looking at ways on how to make that a really sustainable part of the business, and just try to continue supporting growers in our area. So definitely check out the links, and I would love to connect more with growers in our region, especially if you have products that you feel like would be a fit with our program. And I would love to take questions whenever we get to that point.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was a wonderful presentation. And at this point, we've been to Montana, we've been down to Florida, and we're going to move back upward to the Midwest, where we're going to hear from Pam Mack, who's a grower in Mansfield, Ohio. Just a year before Pam retired in 2012, she started Marie LTD, which is a certified organic business. Pam grows a variety of veggies and has experience starting a CSA, selling herbs. So we've seen, a really larger scale operation, a medium scale operation, and now we're going to a smaller operation to hear from Pam what it's like, producing at this scale and in that region and through the marketing outlets that she does. So Pam also holds a Bachelor of Science in Organization Management and completed the Master Gardener program through the Ohio State University, and serves on a variety of other farmer advisory committees. Pam, if you would like to unmute yourself, and then Mary will give you control of the slides and you should be able to advance.
Hello, everyone. I have to apologize. First of all, my computer, for whatever reason, will not let me access my camera, but I am here. So you won't be able to see me, but you can hear me. Okay. First, I want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to everyone. Marie was developed, like she said, after I retired from my public service And a lot of people ask me about the name and ask me, am I El Marie? And I tell them no. Actually, it was named after my daughter. Her name was LaShonda Marie. So this company was actually a tribute to her. She is no longer with us. She left me in 2006. And she had 3 children, which I raised, my grandchildren. That's why they're listed under the operation. They helped me develop El Marie. Now that they're grown, I live amongst the Amish and the Mennonites, so their kids help me maintain the company. I live in a rural area. I have clay soil. I operate with the drip irrigation system. I have well water, and I purchase my own bees every year. I use plastic mulch for my rows, and I put down cover crop in between the rows, and we mow it instead of tilling. I am currently trying to get away from using the trays, the plastic trays. I started last year into trying to develop soil blocking. And so far I've had a lot of success with that. As far as my avenues for making money, and I had CSA, which I developed, and I developed it for people my age. And so that's why it was specialized. You have it on there that was specialized. My farmers markets, I started out with 3 to 4 small farmers markets. And then I went to employee market, Smuckers, if you're familiar with the name. They give their employees farmers markets, so that could be another avenue for somebody to look into. We did that for 3 or 4 years. Columbus, Ohio developed a program called Farm Share during COVID. And that was for us to take the products to the community that was they had less money in them. So they wanted to make sure they got healthy vegetables. And I participated in that for 3 years until the program was canceled this year. And a large market, I'm in a large market against 3,000 people. It's called Clintonville, and we currently serve in that. And as far as a retail store goes, I was selling herbs to a retail store. It was a retail store. If anybody else out there, if you have a store I had a chain that was building a new store, and they were looking for people to provide different things. And I fit into the herbs to the store. That's what I could serve them as far as the products they would need to rotate all the time. And I did well at one store, so they gave me another one. So I had 2 stores. Okay, so the next slide. There it goes. The lesson learned as far as my small operation. Oh, I need to go back one. And I'm not
Mary, we can see your we have something visible on the screen. If you could, there you go. Thanks.
Okay. No, that's my greenhouse. I do have a tunnel in a greenhouse. My greenhouse is 36 by 26. That's where I do all my seedlings. I grow my own seedlings, and that's where I was doing my soil blocking. You can see a picture of the field there, and then how I was doing the sales that I'm trying to get away from. I have 2 to 2.5 acres in production right now with room to expand. So I haven't maxed myself out. I don't increase unless I have. If I know where the products are going to go, then I'll increase. As far as lesson learned, crop plans, you need to plan for profitability, especially when you're as small as I am. An example of that would be I grow beets. So I know I need beets come in 3s. And I know how many I need to take to the market because I've been doing this for a while, and I'm familiar with my customers and how much I can possibly sell per year. So I sell in 3s, and then I'll multiply that by how many I know I need to take. And therefore that determines how many seeds I'm going to put into the ground. Like I also do specialty cut flowers. As far as sunflowers go, I know that I want to do at least 6,000 sunflower seeds a year, because you got a price amount. You give them 6 in each bundle, and then you gotta go by how many weeks you're gonna have these sunflowers a year. Let's say I'm gonna do 14 weeks, so I'm gonna do about 6,000. As far as, and I grow onions, I know I need to plant 10,000 onions a year. I knew I need to do 5,000 leeks a year and on and so forth. So that's what I mean by you need to plans. You need to do crop plans for your profitability, but you also need to do at least a 20%. You need to calculate a 20% loss, and no matter what you do. And what I mean by knowing your customers, you need to know your customers and what they will purchase. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. And to do that, you need to know your medium income, and you need to know who's in that community, whether it's Black, white, Asian. You need to know those things when you go to the farmer's market. You need to see who comes to your particular table, who's buying what, and how much of it you need. I also grow things like okra. This year I planted 20 rows of okra. The farmer's market I go to took all of that for the time that I had it, 20 rows of okra. I grow the green and the burgundy. They took all of it. But it took me a while to get to how much to grow to meet their needs. I grow beans. I do over 100 pounds of beans a week. They take all of that for the time that I have it. But in order to do all this, you have to have a healthy soil. If your soil is not healthy, you're not going to produce products that they're going to want. And when you're as small as I am, you can't waste that kind of time. So you definitely have to put the time into that. For whatever reason, in the future, El Marie, as far as that goes, I'm planning on expanding the specialty cut flowers. I started specialty cut flowers, which was a love of mine when I was growing up. And I added that to El Marie to give her a little diversity, which is definitely needed, especially when you're on this scale. And I do approximately 20 to 30 bundles a week. As far as the farmer's market goes, the one farmer's market that I have, and I always come home with nothing. I hardly ever come back with anything that I take in there, and I take in quite a bit because this particular farmer's market gets about 3,000 people. It's short but sweet. Sorry.
Don't apologize. That was great. And you gave a lot of really great nuggets. I'm going to hand it back over to Thelma. Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank you so much, Pam. I agree. No need to apologize for a shorter presentation. I think it's always nice to have something concise, especially when we want to create more space for conversation. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for some questions and answers. And there are some questions in the chat that I'll lead with. And we also do have questions that folks shared at registration that I've pulled together. So I'm going to start with one from Jane, which I think is an important one, and it may not necessarily be related to how you access markets, but just thinking about off-farm employment, right? And I think if I recall correctly, a 2018 statistic from ERS is that at least 42% of US farmers rely on off-farm income just to make ends meet. And so small farmers need to, rely on that. For you, each of you, if you could each just share, like, do you have to have off-farm income and or are you able to have reliable cash flow year round? And I'll start with, let's start with Amy and then go to Pam and then Anna.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we definitely relied on off-farm income for the first many years, over a decade. We actually worked when we were working in Santa Cruz, California. We lived with a bunch of roommates, as people in their early 20s tend to do, and we saved up money and we did all the kind of side jobs and whatever we could figure out to, sock cash away and get ready to start our farm, because we actually had planned on doing that. And then we saved up what we could, bought the first property, 6 acres, and we're living there. And my husband and I were trying to get the farm started while he was also traveling doing inspections. So it was really, really challenging. And then we had a couple of kids right away. So that was an extra challenge to try to figure out how to manage that. So there were many very stressful years. And I would say only in the past, it sounds kind of weird, but honestly, since the pandemic was actually when our financial stability, where I feel, I'm not saying that there's never financial stress, there's still stress, but I feel much more stable and able to weather challenges. Like, for example, we just put the second transmission in our box truck in 3 years that we've paid for. And so, 5 years ago, if $4,000 or $5,000 expense had come along that was unexpected, I would be having a very, very extremely hard time figuring out how am I going to make payroll versus purchasing this equipment that's needed to keep our operation running. And now I have the ability to move some things around and just, we still have to plan for it, and they're still figuring out to do, but it's definitely a little bit smoother in terms of weathering the ups and downs. And we've also figured out how to put money away during our busy season, which is spring, and put that money away for the summertime, which is our slower season. And we've also, with the adoption of our partner producer program, it really stabilized our income throughout the year, because it used to kind of be like springtime is huge, heavy cash flow time. And then by the time you run through the summer, spent all your money, fall, you have nothing to get started with. And, the CSA helps with that as well, but the CSA is not the majority of our operation, it's a part of it. So the CSA really helps with those seasonal planting expenses. But yeah, the off-farm income, we relied heavily on that. And he worked not just a little bit. I mean, he was working a full-time job, traveling plus operating the farm. So, and he still works, very much more than a, 40-hour work week. So
Absolutely.
I rolled that right into our farming operation. But yeah, it took over 10 years and a substantial shift in the size of our farm to achieve what I feel like is a little more stability.
Thank you, Amy. Anna, what about you?
Well, sure. Yeah, I am still working an off-farm job. Doug and I started in 2009. We both were working off-farm jobs. And then 2 years later, he was able to transition directly into doing the farm 100%. It's an income stabilizer for us that I'm still working off the farm, but it's also about the health insurance. Doug's type 1 diabetic. And so, we have to have that stability underneath of us. And I think, I don't know if it was Thelma, but the last statistics that I heard were it's like 80% of farms have someone working an off-farm job to help support. And we have a lot of questions around that in terms of how we change that system, because as we've hosted apprentices, what is it that's going to make a viable living? There were questions about housing in the chat. There's also this issue of health insurance. It's easier to go do something else and get paid every 2 weeks, no matter how much it rains, than to farm some days. So I don't want to sound like a big bummer, but that's part of the reality. I think that those of us that want to figure out how to expand opportunities in agriculture, we're going to have to figure out how to overcome that. We're hoping that with some more of the investments in these direct sales markets that we're trying to do, that's going to help with the income piece of the farm. And frankly, because we're first generation, we've had a lot of investment ourselves in terms of infrastructure and storage and equipment, and that's always an ongoing thing, but we've had to do an awful lot of that to get going.
Thanks, Anna. And Pam, I know you retired, so the situation may be different, but if you can share your insights, and then after that, we'll transition to our breakout rooms.
Okay, but yes, I am retired, so I didn't have to worry about health insurance. I didn't have to worry about the base income. I didn't have to worry about any of that. I built my company slowly, and the company itself has no debt. That's why I went so slow. I did not want to jump out there because there's a lot of other things I could have done with it. I had a product approved to develop and put out there too. And I said no, because I had to raise 4 boys. My grandkids, I kind of slowed back and pulled it back, so I could be there for them and do this at the same time. That's why I'm going to expand into the specialty cut flowers in that avenue instead. I built the company to try to help them out because I worried about them not having their parents around. Because when I was growing up, my parents were the ones I could go to if I needed something. So I wanted to be there for the boys. And that's why I built the company and why it's named after her. And so far I've been success in there. The boys are grown. The youngest one is 20 now. And the issues that they have, I've been able to supply it for them.
Thank you so much to our presenters who were here today. Thank you so much, Pam. We really appreciated your time and sharing with us. Thank you to Amy as well, and Anna. We're just very grateful for any farmer who can share their insights with other farmers, because farmers learn best from other farmers.